drove home and I couldn't shake it. That low-grade hum in my chest. The kind that's not quite dread, but it's not nothing either. And the strange thing, nothing had gone wrong. The conversation was fine. The person was fine. On paper, everything was completely fine. But there it was, that feeling. And I did what most of us do. I try to talk myself out of it. You're being oversensitive. You're imagining things. Just let it go. I let it go. And then I saw this person again. And there it was again. That same low hum. That same feeling of something being slightly off. And I thought, what is this? What are my emotions trying to tell me? That's what I want to talk about today. Because I think most of us have been taught to treat our emotions like they're a problem to be managed. Like they're a weather system we need to get through. And what I've come to understand after years of working with thousands of people, and honestly after years of getting this completely wrong myself, is that your emotions are not malfunctions. They're messages. And that feeling I kept having around this person, it was one of the most useful pieces of information I'd received in years. And I just didn't know how to read it yet. So let me tell you what was actually happening. This person and I had known each other for a while. And every time we were together, the conversation would eventually come round to the same place. What could I do for them? Not how are you? Not what's going on in your world, but what could I offer? What did I know? What could I give? And I'd leave that person each time feeling slightly hollowed out. Not angry, not upset, just flat and anxious. So here's the thing about anxiety that nobody tells you. It's not always about the future. Sometimes anxiety is your nervous system saying, something here isn't safe. Not dramatically unsafe, but unsafe in a way that a relationship where you're only valued for your usefulness is unsafe. So your body picks that up before your mind does. Your emotions see the pattern before your conscious brain puts it into words. So the anxiety wasn't a malfunction, it was intelligence. And when I finally stopped trying to override it, when I stopped saying, just be more generous, just be less sensitive, and I actually listened to it, I realized I needed to put some distance between me and this person. Not dramatically, not with a big confrontation, just quietly step back. And the moment I did, the anxiety stopped. So the emotion had been pointing me somewhere the whole time. I just hadn't been listening. So here's the framework I want to give you today, and I want you to save this because once you see it, you actually can't unsee it. So we've been taught by self-help, by therapy culture, by well-meaning people to regulate our emotions, to manage them, to calm them down, to soothe them, to process them away. And sometimes that's useful. But the dominant message is feel better faster. What I want to offer you instead is this. Your emotions are data, or as everyone teases me when I say that word, data. I'm going to say data, all right? They're your most honest feedback system. And the goal isn't to feel better faster, it's to understand what the emotion is pointing toward. So let's go through the 4 big emotions. The first one is anger. So when you feel angry, the most common advice is breathe, count to 10, take a walk, calm down. Which, that's fine, but anger isn't the problem. Anger is a signal that a boundary's been crossed. Something happened that violated what you value, what you need, or what you believe is right. So anger is telling you something here isn't okay. So if you manage the anger away without asking what's underneath it, what it's pointing to, you might get calm, but the boundary's still being crossed and the anger will be back. So the question that anger is asking is not, how do I feel better? It's what boundary am I not protecting? I spent years being angry at people when I was younger and not understanding why. And a big part of it was that I had no idea what my own boundaries were. I'd been through enough difficult things in my life, particularly in my childhood, that I'd learned to have no needs, no edges, no clear sense of where I ended and other people began. Some of you might relate to that. And anger was the only thing loud enough to get through. And once I actually started listening to it, once I asked, what line just got crossed? I stopped having as much of it because I was actually responding to what it was telling me. The second big emotion is sadness. So sadness means something important is missing or something important has been lost. That's it. That's the whole signal. And we are deeply uncomfortable with sadness in this culture. We pathologize it. We medicate it. We tell people to push through it. Look on the bright side. Focus on gratitude. And again, of course, some of those things help. But sadness that's been pushed down doesn't go away. It goes sideways. It shows up as numbness, as flatness, as this low-grade heaviness that you can't quite name. So when sadness comes, and I mean the ordinary grief of life, not clinical depression, that's a different conversation. When sadness comes and you let yourself actually feel it, it tends to move. It tends to do what it's supposed to do. Grieve the thing, let it matter, and then slowly you can move. So the sadness isn't asking you to stay there forever. It's asking you to acknowledge this matters. The third emotions are anxiety and fear, which brings me back to my story. Because anxiety at its core is this. Something feels unsafe or unresolved. So your nervous system is scanning for threat, real or perceived, and it's raising the alarm. Now, sometimes anxiety is disproportionate to the actual situation. Sometimes it's old wiring from old experiences, and that's worth working on. That's real. But sometimes anxiety is just accurate. Something is unsafe. Something is unresolved. And the most useful thing you can do is not silence it, but ask, what specifically doesn't feel safe here? So in my case, the answer was, this relationship isn't reciprocal. I feel a little bit used. My nervous system knew before I did. So your anxiety is almost always pointing at something. It might be a relationship, it might be a decision you keep avoiding, might be a situation at work or a conversation you haven't had. So the anxiety isn't the problem, the unresolved thing is the problem. And the anxiety is just the smoke detector doing its job. And the fourth one is guilt. Guilt is one of the most misunderstood emotions because we conflate it with shame. They're different. Shame says, I'm bad. Guilt says, I did something that conflicts with my values. So shame is about who you are. Guilt is about what you did. And guilt, real guilt, not the kind that's been weaponized by other people onto you. Real guilt is useful. It's your internal compass saying, that wasn't aligned with who I want to be. So the right response to guilt isn't to punish yourself. It's acknowledgement and repair. I got that wrong. What can I do about it? That's it. That's the whole thing. So the problem is that a lot of us carry guilt that was handed to us by other people. Guilt that has absolutely nothing to do with our actual values and everything to do with somebody else's agenda. So learning to tell the difference between authentic guilt and borrowed guilt is one of the most freeing things that you can do. So what does it actually look like to do this? To shift from how do I stop feeling this to what is this feeling pointing me toward? It starts with not fighting the feeling in the first moment it arrives. Now, I know that sounds completely counterintuitive, but when an emotion comes up, that tightness in your chest or that spike of irritation or that sudden, inexplicable flatness, instead of immediately reaching for the off switch, try to get curious about it first. So just ask before you reach for your phone to start scrolling or to eat something or whatever it is you do to run away. Just ask yourself, what are you trying to tell me? You don't have to sit in meditation for an hour, although doing the 10-minute mind every day is a really good thing to do. You don't have to journal 20 pages. You just have to pause for long enough to take the feeling seriously, to treat it like it might know something that you don't, because it does. That's my whole point. Your emotional system has been with you your entire life. It's been recording everything. It knows your analytical brain hasn't caught up. It knows things your analytical brain hasn't caught up to yet. So I spent a long time trying to not feel things. And I get why people do that. I really do. When you've had a painful life, when emotions have felt like danger, the most logical thing in the world is to learn to switch them off. And when I was younger, I got very good at it. But the thing about suppressed emotion is that they find another way out. For me, it was physical. Tension, headaches, this tight knot in my stomach that never fully went away. For other people, it can be sudden outbursts or a kind of low-level numbness where nothing really lands, nothing really moves you. So when emotions don't get listened to, they get louder, not quieter. So the path forward, and I say this having walked it, not just studied it, is learning to hear them when they're still a whisper, so they don't have to become a scream. So if you're watching or listening to this and you're recognizing some of these patterns in yourself, maybe you've been suppressing, maybe you've been managing instead of listening, maybe you just don't totally understand what your emotional responses are trying to tell you, have a free quiz that might help you get a clearer picture. It's called the Happiness Quiz. It's at iintendtobehappy.com. Takes a few minutes. It gives you a personalized snapshot of what's going on underneath, where your well-being is genuinely strong and where your emotions might be trying to get your attention. Thousands of people have taken it and said it's the first time they really saw themselves clearly. The link's in the description. So I want to come back to where we started. That feeling I had driving home, that low hum in my chest that I couldn't explain, the one I tried to argue myself out of for months. That feeling was right. And I think about it all the times in my life where I had feelings I try to override because they were inconvenient or because I didn't trust myself or because someone else told me that I was being too sensitive, which I always got a lot of. And I think, what if I'd listened sooner? What if I'd treated those feelings as intelligent information from the very beginning? That's what I want for you. Not to be ruled by your emotions, that's not what I'm saying. But to stop treating them just like they're noise. They're not noise. They're the most honest voice you have. So this week, when you're feeling something, anything, before you reach for the fix, just pause. Get curious. Ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? That one shift from how do I stop feeling this to what is this pointing me toward, that one shift changes everything. So if this landed for you, make sure you subscribe. I've got new episodes every week. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this has been helpful. As always, be kind, take care, go gently in the world.